Welcome to the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer ship brief. Today I'm going to tell you why this is the most powerful surface combatant in the world. There's nothing quite like the Arleigh Burke, especially the Flight 2 Alpha and Flight 3s that we're building now. It's an all-around workhorse and at-sea warrior that can do just about anything it's asked to do in terms of at-sea power projection, surveillance, employment, ballistic missile defense. It is quite the Swiss Army knife of the United States Navy. It's a very impressive vehicle, and I think you'll understand a lot more about it by the end of this talk. So right now, we have we have 74 of these destroyers commissioned in the United States Navy. We are, at the time of this recording, getting ready to commission additional 2 here in short order. So this number is quickly going to become 76. That's a little footnote for you. If you see this video in the future, this number is going to go up. There are 25 additional contracts, not to get ahead of myself on this destroyer. So eventually we're going to end up with about 100 of these. Just 100 is a good number for you to keep in mind. It's going to take another 10 to 12 years to get to that point. But between now and 2040, we're going to get to around 100. And we're currently building the Flight 3. So where are these built? These are built in 2 places. Bath Iron Works, which is up in Maine, an absolute historic shipyard. It's been around forever. And then Huntington Ingalls. Huntington Ingalls builds these as well, both on the Eastern Gulf Coast. So none of these are actually built on the West Coast at all, but they serve on the West Coast as much as the East Coast, and of course around the world. This is really the backbone of the United States Navy surface fleet. It really is. Everything hinges on this. You know, our aircraft carriers that get all the attention because they have the planes and the pilots and the admirals. And they do the mission of overseas power projection. Protecting them and escorting them are these destroyers. And these destroyers work very hard. They have a lot of at-sea time, a lot of operational time. Sailors who are assigned to destroyers are expected to not be on shore. They're expected to be at sea a lot during their entire time, during their assignment. So there are 4 variants of this ship. There is the Flight 1, Flight 2, Flight 2 Alpha, and then Flight 3. And Flight 3 is what we're building right now. We are wrapping up construction on a couple Flight 2 Alphas, and then it's all going to be Flight 3 after that. Now, the weapon systems on board will vary from one flight to another. We'll talk about that, especially in number of VLS. But just know that now, the ones we're building now, have 96 VLS. Those are vertical launch systems. And so each cell can carry 1 or more surface-to-air missile, torpedo, as you'll find out. We could say surface-to-space missile in terms of ballistic missile defense, low Earth orbit. It's a really interesting system. They carry a wide range of weapons. They do still have the classic 127 millimeter gun on the bow, which is required for a warship to be a warship. It must have a gun, and that is true still today. And they do shoot the new Mark 54 torpedo. We'll talk more detail about that whenever we get there. I have a lot of experience with the Mark 54. It's very good. And these entered service in 1991. All right. So here are the 4 flights. Flight 1 and Flight 2 are DDG 51 to DDG 78. And they're nearly identical in terms of appearance from the outside. In terms of the Aegis baseline that they have, which is the version of combat software that runs the radars and connects the weapons to everything. That's called the Aegis system. And that baseline was a little bit different between Flight 1 and Flight 2, but now they've all been upgraded to baseline 9, so that's not even a difference anymore. So as you look at Flight 1 and Flight 2, with no helicopter hangar, they both have 90 VLS cells, the same combat system, the same radar. You may ask yourself, what is the difference? Why is there a Flight 2? What was the purpose? So Flight 2 is a very interesting, almost call it a derivative of Flight 1. So keep in mind, these are coming online in the 1990s, early 1990s. What happened in 1992? Well, the fall of the Soviet Union had, and we had this peace dividend where it looked like there was no near-peer competitor, as far as the Navy goes, in the world. We had the strongest Navy in the world. Why are we spending so much money on these Flight 1 Arleigh Burkes? The Flight 2 is a redesign and scaled down in some cases version of the Flight 1. For example, they took away the anti-ship harpoon launchers on many of the Flight 2s to save money. It is less combat capable, but a lot of the interior spaces were redesigned to be more efficient, some say stronger, because it does end up displacing a little bit more water than Flight 1, so it is a little bit heavier. And so there, a lot of the changes between Flight 1 and Flight 2 are inside, how the spaces are arranged and where the equipment is and stuff like that. So there's not a lot of difference from the combat capability side of Flight 1 and Flight 2, except they did take some weapon systems off in an apparent money-saving venture. But a lot of those, especially the harpoons, which are external launchers, you can just bolt them on and off, have been reinstalled. So they're back on the Flight 2s now. We haven't built Flight 2 in a long time, so that's all history. They do continue to get upgrades to their combat system, the Aegis system, and each upgrade has a baseline number. So they're at baseline 9. Baseline 9 is the top of the line, the best software that runs the Spy 1D variant of the Aegis radar. So that's where Flight 2 Alpha comes in. Flight 2 Alpha is a significant redesign and new construction of the Flight 2. So the first thing they did is they added a helicopter hangar. 2 of them, a pair of hangars, got helicopters in it. So now when the ship goes to sea, it can bring its own ASW, anti-submarine warfare, force with it. It's not reliant on someone else to bring the helicopters to prosecute submarine contacts quickly. That's the purpose of those helicopters. Now, of course, helicopters are multi-role. They can do a lot of other things, like bring supplies from the supply ship back to the ship and so forth. But their primary role is anti-submarine warfare. They did increase the VLS count, starting with Flight 2 Alpha. So Flight 2 Alpha and Flight 3 both have 96 cells in their VLS system, or vertical launch system. The S stands for system. The big difference between Flight 2 Alpha and Flight 3 is the radar. Yeah, the radar in Flight 2 Alpha is still the older Spy 1 Delta, which is very good, by the way. But it is the older of the two that we're talking about. Flight 3, which begins with DDG 125 hull number, going onwards from that, has Spy 6. That is the latest and greatest as of 2025, and probably will be for a very long time. That's the best Aegis radar in the United States Navy. It's so good, they're putting the Spy 6 on the new aircraft carriers. Like, it's just the best. And so with the Spy 6 Aegis radar, that's where Aegis Baseline 10 software fire control system comes in. So when you see Baseline 9, that's Spy 1 Delta. When you see Baseline 10 anywhere, that's Spy 6. The new frigate that's coming out will have the Spy 6. Therefore, they'll have Aegis Baseline 10. And a real quick summary of the Aegis system is that it's very good at connecting all the sensors to the weapons on board the ship, and it also data links to other commands, other ships, whether it's in the fleet, ashore, satellite, Space Force. It connects everything together, so we can use a sensor that's in orbit, a synthetic aperture array radar detecting the wake of a submarine that's 80 miles away from where the ship is actually located. And the ship probably would have no idea the submarine's there, but the satellite can see it. Therefore, Aegis Baseline 9 can see it. Baseline 10 can see it. And then they can react to it appropriately. Aegis connects all combat systems and sensors together. So every ship and airplane, everything that operates in the Aegis linked network can see what everything else can see. It's fantastic. It's also very high speed. Modern naval warfare, especially with drones now, is going to employ a lot of swarm tactics, and you'll need to be able to respond quickly and in force to overmatch an incoming attack is expected to be the future of warfare for us. And so the computers can take over and react much faster than humans can. That is been a keystone of Aegis, going all the way back to the Ticonderoga program in the 1980s. That's not a new capability at all. It's only gotten better. and that's Flight 2 and Flight 3. Those are the differences. Now we're going to break those down a little bit farther. We're going to go over each system right now. Let's start with Flight 1 and 2. Like I said, externally they look very similar, and they have a lot of the same systems. On the bow, we have the Mark 45 127mm naval gun. It has different types of rounds, high explosives for ships and small drones that are on the sea, but it also shoots a flak round or an anti-air round that has a proximity fuse on it that can be used against aircraft, incoming cruise missiles, and of course drones. Right behind that is the 29-cell Mark 41 VLS. And this is where you have the Tomahawk missiles, the Standard Missile 2, 3, and 6, and I'll break those down. It also can shoot torpedoes vertically. Yes, a torpedo can come out of a VLS cell with a little rocket motor throwing it up into the air, and it will toss that sucker about 16 miles, or 16,000 yards rather, very different, 16,000 yards away from the ship, where it drops it in the water, and then the torpedo will begin a search. So it can reach out quite a ways with a VLS rocket-assisted launched torpedo. Behind that, but just in forward of the bridge, is the first Phalanx Block 1 Bravo close-in weapon system. This is the little turret that has the 20mm Gatling gun that can swivel around and shoot down low-flying aircraft or cruise missiles that come too close. That's what that's for. Amidships, and this is port and starboard, there's one on each side, is the Mark 38 machine gun. This is a remote weapon system. This is controlled from inside the ship with an operator and a little joystick, and he can move the gun around. It also has an autonomous mode where it can track and shoot things. This will be used primarily against small boats and drones, unmanned surface vessels that are coming in. This thing is going to rip that thing apart. It has a gun that's very similar to the Bushmaster that is on the Bradley. I think there's a small variant difference for the Navy purposes, but it's essentially the same type of gun. It can rip a USV, whether it's on the surface or in the air, absolutely apart. And that's kind of its purpose, is close-in defense and self-defense and security and port, things like that. CRAM, PDMS is behind that. Now there's a difference between the Phalanx Block 1B close-in weapon systems and the CRAM. The CRAM looks a lot like a CWIS, and it is a close-in weapon system, but they call it a point defense missile system. That's the PDMS part. And it just shoots a small, very short-range infrared homing surface-to-air missile at anything coming in, whether it's a drone or a cruise missile. Very, very short range. All right, and then just after that, you can see the Harpoon launchers. I told you they were external launchers. In this case, it has 2 quad launchers, one face port, one face starboard. Don't be confused about them facing sideways. Once the missile's launched, it can fly in any direction, so it's not a big deal which way it's facing. They'll shoot, a target on the starboard side from the port launcher if they need to. It's not the first choice, but they can do that. And there's the 61-cell Mark 41 VLS aft of that. This is another VLS battery, a larger one than the one that's up forward, bringing their VLS count up to 90. And then they also have the Mark 21 twin torpedo launchers. These are external, or topside anyway, triple torpedo launchers. And you put the 40-centimeter torpedo in there. It can be a Mark 46, a Mark 50, a Mark 54 torpedo. All 3 of those will fit, and just launch it into the sea there. And then all the way back aft, you see just a landing pad. There's no hangar. Helicopter can come, land, get strapped down. They can carry a helicopter around. You wouldn't want to do that long term. I mean, aircraft are very susceptible to the seas, the rough environment at sea, whether it's, salt, wind, rain. All that stuff is not good for any kind of aircraft. So that's why you like to keep them in hangars. But just know that they can receive a helicopter. They can carry it around for a while, but they don't have any shelter for it. Here are the sensors. On the bow, but below the waterline, is the SQS-53 Charlie bow-mounted sonar array, a very powerful active and passive sonar. It's very good. On the main mast, we have most of the sensors, most of the radars anyway. At the very top, you have SPS-67 surface search radar. Below that is SPS-73. Below that, around the bridge, is the panels for the Spy-1 Delta air search fire control radar. There's 4 panels, each canted at 90 degrees from each other, so a full 360-degree coverage. The little pointy bit that looks like a triangle facing port and starboard, that is the SLQ-32 radar ESM. And it's a combination of electronic support measures and electronic countermeasures. It does it all, and it's very good at what it does. We'll go over that as much as we're allowed to, which is not too much. Behind that are the decoys. These are little tubes that point upwards, and these little tubes shoot super rapid blooming onboard chaff or offboard chaff, just basically chaff and combos. Shoots flares. Chaff is little metal pieces that float up in the air like a cloud and make a huge radar reflection, so that if it's a radar guided cruise missile, it sees such a huge target, it may physically miss the ship, right? Possibly, or just fly over the ship. Today's launchers will launch a combination of things, really. Flares, like I said, also at-sea decoys for torpedoes coming in. And I've even seen some floaties where it throws something into the water that blows up like a big balloon that's like, 15 feet by 15 feet square. Some of them are pyramid shaped. And they're just big, giant radar reflectors floating around. And the ship will launch those into the water, and they'll float behind the ship as the ship drives away, hoping to seduce the weapon into going into that little balloon bounce house looking thing instead of the ship itself. That's kind of how that works. Behind the two stacks that have the main engine exhaust, you see the SPG-62 fire control radars. Those are the round dish-shaped radars. Those are illumination radars. We point those at the target that we want the SM-2 missiles to hit. That's the purpose of those radars, radar dishes. You can see there's one above the bridge as well. So they got a number of those. And then back aft below the waterline is the SQR-19 Bravo towed sonar array. It's a passive array. You drag it a couple hundred yards behind the ship and try to find submarines. It's pretty good. Now, here's the Flight 2 Alpha Flight 3. This is the new hotness. So we have the same Mark 45 127mm naval gun on the bow. Like I said, every warship has a gun. The VLS cell on the bow is a little bit bigger with 32 VLS. And inside that is the Tomahawks, the ESSM, which is the very small, short range, but highly accurate surface-to-air missiles used generally for point defense. And you can stack 4 ESSM missiles in one VLS. Yeah. And, but it doesn't have any range. So you're not doing anything with that missile except defending the ship, which is why you wouldn't put all 32 cells. You wouldn't make them all ESSMs. Even though you certainly could, it just wouldn't be, the ship wouldn't have any other mission, like Tomahawks or the SM-2s and 3s and 6s that have much longer range and a completely different purpose than the ESSMs. So, but just know that ESSM is just one example of a multi-stack in one VLS. And in this case, it's 4-to-1. All right. So, the Phalanx Block 1 Bravo close-in weapon system is the same as Flight 1 and Flight 2, as is the Mark 38 machine gun, port and starboard. You have the CRAM point defense missile system there behind the exhaust of the engines, and the 64 cell Mark 41 VLS is back aft of that. That all is the same as Mark 2 and Mark 1. The Mark 32 twin torpedo launchers, those have been moved on top of what is now a helicopter hangar. So you can see where the side of the hull goes from a dark gray to a light gray. The light gray is the new addition. It's basically, they've raised the deck enough feet to fit 2 helicopters. And if you look closely at the helicopter landing pad, not only is it a little bit bigger now, it has 2 tracks that one goes port, one goes starboard, where you can actually, winch under a helicopter that's under control, that's chained down essentially onto a winch, and then roll it out so it doesn't tip over or fly away as you're trying to get it in and out of the hangar. And the same with after it lands, you can put it on this little winch and pull it in to the hangar. So those are the weapon systems. Now, the sensors are pretty much the same. The big difference is Flight 3 is going to have the new Spy 6 radar, but visually it's going to appear the same as the Flight 2 Alpha. You have the SPQ-9 Bravo now, air search radar and surface search radar. You have the Sperry Bridgemaster navigation radar. SLQ-32V RESM is still there, as is the Sarbach decoy launchers and the Nulka decoy launchers. That's Mark 53. Same SPG 62 rather, fire control radars, same towed array, same active sonar on the bow, a lot of the same things. There is the SPQ-9, there is a new anti-ship missile defense radar that will go over that they've installed on all the Flight 3s will get it, and a lot of the Flight 2 Alphas are getting that. So that's kind of an exception and a relatively recent addition to the Arleigh Burke. And we'll show you that here in a second. All right, so where are they made? They are made, like I said, in Bath Iron Works up in Maine and Huntington Ingalls Industries there on the Gulf Coast. Okay, Arleigh Burke DDG by the numbers. This is the slide that has all the information in this video. If you want to watch it, I'll quickly go over it. This is a co-gag propulsion system, which means combined gas turbine and gas turbine. It has a total of 4 LM2500 gas turbines, 4 of these things. You can run one. You can run all 4, and you can change from 1 to 4 and back again without having to do any changes in the propulsion lineup. That's what gas turbine and gas turbine means. So you can combine them all and get 100,000 horsepower on a ship that weighs less than 10,000 tons. That's incredible. This thing goes, folks. Like, if you're running all 4 gas turbines and you're, I don't know, idle, maybe you're even sitting still, you can get to flank speed in, definitely under a minute. Like, you're galloping within 60 seconds. You know, you're just ripping through the water as fast as this thing will go. The acceleration on the Arleigh Burke is insane. It's almost pleasure boat, speedboat level whenever it's running all of its gas turbines. It's really, really something to experience. The length and the dimensions of the ship are 155 meters long. It is 18 meters wide, or a beam, and 9.8 meters, just under 10 meters draught, which is like draft. The public number for speed is 31 knots. That's what we're using here. That's a flank bell. That's as fast as it will go through the water. The VLSs are different from Flight 1 and 2 and Flight 2 Alpha and 3. We have 90 on the older ones and 96 on the new ones. A little bit more, again, in that forward battery, has a few more cells in it. It shoots the RGM-109. That's called the Tomahawk missile. It shoots the newest one, which is the Block 4, a very advanced subsonic land attack and anti-ship missile. It can do both. The standard missile 2, medium range, which is Block 3, both Alpha and Bravo variants can be shot. It shoots the RIM 162 Alpha. That's the ESSM. That's the very small, short range, but high speed defensive primarily missile, ESSM. Remember, 4 to a VLS cell. It shoots the SM-6, which is the newest standard missile. Very expensive, but highly capable, long range, very long range surface-to-air missile. And then the SM-3 surface-to-air missile is very special. It has one mission, and that is to ram itself into a ballistic missile, causing an explosion. SM-3 is unique in that it doesn't have an explosive warhead or a proximity fuse. It literally hits whatever it's tracking. It runs into it at enormous speeds in low Earth orbit or suborbital trajectories, because it's a ballistic missile, usually the target, and it just rips it apart with kinetic energy. It's a very advanced seeker head on the SM-3. And then we have a CRAM point defense missile system, is the short range. They're just forward and on top of the aircraft hangar. We have 2 Mark 32 triple torpedo launchers, one port, one starboard. And then we have the Mark 45 Mod 2 127 millimeter gun for ballistic missile systems. That's combined with a ballistic phalanx just forward of the bridge, and the Mark 38 remote weapon system, one port, one starboard. Those are the weapons. On the right-hand column, we have all the sensors. So Spy 1 Delta for flights 1, 2, and 2 Alpha. Spy 6 for flight 3. Surface search radars, SPS 167 version 5 for flight 1, 2, and 2 Alpha. SPQ-9 is a new anti-ship missile defense radar. And that's going to be on Flight 2 Alphas and Flight 3s. Remember, they went back on the Flight 2 Alphas and started installing this SPQ-9 Bravo. It only has like a 10-mile range, very short range, but that's because it's used to defend the ship from weapons and drones that get inside that 10-mile bubble around the ship. That's the purpose of that. All right, the SPG-62 fire control radar dishes illuminate targets for the surface-to-air missiles, specifically the SM-2. The SPS-73 or Sperry Bridgemaster navigation radar are used. The SLQ-32 version 3 radar ESM. There's different versions of the SLQ-32. Just know that that is the ESM, the electronic support measures that listen to the electromagnetic spectrum, recording radars, data links, radio communications, all get collected by ESM. It also has a countermeasure component of the system. That's called ECM, and it's part of the same SLQ-32. The SLQ-32 version 7 is under the new SCWIP upgrade or SWIP upgrade, starting at DDG 91. And that is the one that has the very large port and starboard projection where they were doing some testing with that. And they're going to install this new SWIP upgrade in current and future versions of the Arleigh Burke. It's very good is what it is. Not only good at collection, it's very good at projecting energy, microwave energy in very narrow needle-like beams that can go out and just wreck incoming missiles or drones. Like this is going to be the great drone defense. People are worried about our ships being swarmed by drones. Well, the SLQ-32 is going to end that drone's life at a range of about 10 miles in a hurry. Whether it's one drone or 100 drones, this thing will take it out. It's a very intense microwave beam that is going to not just disrupt the communication of the drone. No, it's going to tear the drone apart with the energy this thing has. It's really intense. Okay, the ANSRS-A is CESM. Okay, I was just kind of talking about this. These are all the different increments of electronics support measures the different Arleigh Burkes have. And each one is getting better over time is the takeaway here. SQS-53 hull-mounted sonar is on the bow. Very powerful sonar. Can see forever with the right sonar environment. Deep water, whether it's Atlantic or Pacific or Indian Ocean, doesn't matter. As long as it's deep water, it can see for many dozens of miles with active sonar. And then the towed array they tow behind it is very good at detecting passively any very quiet submarines. So it's just a good sonar all the way around. Aegis Baseline 9 for Flight 1, 2, and 2 Alpha because they have the Spy 1 Delta radar. And then Aegis Baseline 10 is the fire control software for the new Spy 6 radar on Flight 3s. Links, these are data link systems. They have Link 4 Alpha, Link 11, Link 16, Link 22 will eventually be added in the future. Here's the LM2500 gas turbine, manufactured by General Electric. It is derived from the GE military TF-39. It's a commercial CF high bypass turbofan aircraft engine. What they did with this was quite incredible. They took this very lightweight, less than 5-ton engine, and they put it in a module. So it's like in a little cage. So as it's running, you can look through little windows, the crew can, and see it operate. But it's literally bolted into the ship. And because it's bolted in, it can be bolted back out again, taken ashore, repaired, and put back in. So it's modular is my point. So you can do maintenance to this thing easily on board the ship if you need to. But if it's time to do major work on it, because these things, after a certain number of hours of operation, need to have depot level maintenance done to them, they can pull into port without going into a dry dock or extended maintenance period. I'll say over a weekend as an example. They can pull one of these out, bolt a new one in, and get back underway on Monday morning. That's how convenient the operation of this type of system is. It's a modular power plant, and they have 4 of them on this little destroyer. This destroyer is less than 10,000 tons, and each one of these can generate just over 33,000 horsepower. And then they put 4 of them that work together, and it pushes this ship through the water like a rocket. It is so efficient, lightweight, high power output. Here's the Spy 1D radar, manufactured by Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, working together. Also, Computer Science Corporation has have a big part of that. You'll see a lot of those three primary military industry companies working together on a lot of things, from missiles to radars to sonars. They're involved in many of those things. In this case, it's a radar. So this is a 3D multifunction radar. Multifunction that it can do air search, surface search. It can track, detect and even classify things like missiles, based on the rate of speed and motion, and also give recommendations to the fire control system as to what is what, as to if it's an incoming hypersonic weapon or if it's a drone. It can do a lot of different things based on what it's seeing. It works with the Aegis system, and the Aegis system does do the primary work for that. That's its purpose. But this system is very capable in detecting all of those things and then giving the right information to the Aegis, saying, hey, this missile's coming at us, and here's its speed, its course, and its range. And then Aegis takes that information and will employ a countermeasure appropriately for it. It works in the 2 to 4 gigahertz band and has a range of about 90 miles, roughly. And it's got 4 panels. They're all 90 degrees from each other around the bridge, just below where the bridge are. You can see in the picture there are the windows above the radar array. That's the bridge where the watchstanders are. And right below that is the big radar itself. So it does have peak power of 64 kilowatts average and is compatible with SM-2 and the ESSM surface-to-air missile systems. Spy 1 Delta is shared with our allies and onboard 137 ships worldwide. That's more than just the U.S. Navy. Here's the Spy 6 radar. Here you see it on a mount. I believe this is a test mount there on the right-hand side. And that's just give you an idea of how big it is. I mean, look at the stairs that go up. Compare that to how big that actual array is. It's quite the thing. This is a air and missile defense radar. Works in the 2 to 4 gigahertz band again, but it also has an X-band component, which is 8 to 12 gigahertz. Provides volumetric searching, can track ballistic missiles, and can discriminate them. And that's really important. A lot of modern ballistic missiles, especially I'm thinking of the ones coming out of Russia and China, whenever they launch and are ready to deploy their warhead, they'll deploy their warhead along with over a dozen decoys. So, one warhead will look like 20 coming in on a target. And so the defense operators will have to discriminate which one's a decoy, which one is the actual warhead, so you don't get attacked, right? This radar does that very well. Spy 6 is exceptional at discriminating between what is the actual weapon warhead and what is a decoy. That's one of its claim to fame. Has a similar range capability of approximately 90 nautical miles, forward-facing 90-degree antennas, SM-2, ESSM compatible, of course. So it's all retro compatible, just with new capabilities. This is the radar that's on the Flight 3. Here's the SPG-62 fire control radar by Raytheon. This is a continuous wave, so it's continuously projecting an illumination beam on a target, whether it's a drone, a ship, an incoming cruise missile. It's just illuminating it so that when this SM-2 missile or ESSM is launched, it can look for, hey, where is my X-band, 8 to 12 gigahertz beam? Oh, it's right there. Go ahead and home in on it. That's the purpose of this fire control radar. The SPS-67 version 5 surface search radar is the little flat bar looking thing there. This is made by DRS, that's Defense Solutions. Also a part of Leonardo Group. Leonardo is an Italian weapons maker. It's designed to replace the SPS-10 surface search radar. This is just your simple 2D, look down on a flat surface, watch the radar spin around, and we'll get bearing and range to surface contacts around the ship, out to about 56 nautical miles. It's a pretty conventional radar. It's been around since the early 80s. Here's the SPQ-9 anti-ship missile defense radar. This is the new one that they're putting on the Flight 3, and they're backfitting this radar onto Flight 2 Alpha as well, because it's very good with its high Doppler frequency agile, transmissions that go out to about 10 nautical miles. in the X band, which is 8 to 12 gigahertz, and give very clear radar signatures and pictures of what the object is out there, whether it's an incoming attack, or it could be a ship on the water, it could be a drone on the water. Stealthy like drones that are sneaking up on ships in, say, the Black Sea, for example, right now with the Ukraine war going on, can get very close in a lot of those cases because they don't have a system like this on board those targets. Well, our ships do have a radar that's capable of seeing them 10 miles out, buying the crew and the weapon systems time to react before they get close to the ship. So this is good for defending the ship from attack, whether it's from the air or it's on the sea. This radar will see it at the 10-mile point. SPS-73 Surface Search Radar. This is by Raytheon. It's 2D surface search navigation radar, capable of tracking many contacts. You can do 20 manual ones, but it'll do 200 or so automatic ones. It's a simple plain air array, and this IOC'd in 1997. Here's the Mark 53 Nulka decoy launcher. This is an automated system that works hand in hand with the Aegis system. So when the radar tells the Aegis system that it's under attack, here is the contact that's closing rapidly, the Aegis system will work with Nulka to deploy the proper countermeasure, whether it's chaff, flare, a torpedo decoy. It decides, and this system will make sure that it's deployed in the proper direction on the proper side of the ship, and effectively deployed and redeployed as necessary as long as the attack happens. It's a very good decoy launcher. Here's the Mark 36 Serbach. That's the super rapid offboard chaff. You can see when they're being launched. Those are the tubes that are mounted topside at different angles, right around 45 to 60 degree angles. And they just punch one of these things out and it goes up and it launches a combo, which would be chaff and flare, or it could just be a flare, or it could just be chaff out into the water. It's a 130 millimeter mortar tube that just launches this decoy up into the air where it does its thing. And these are reloadable at sea. Once one is expended, you can go out there and reload it. All right, here's the SLQ-32 Alpha radar ESM. You can see a combination of different arrays there. This is a very advanced system that's continuously improving every year. And it's highly sensitive, highly secret. Just know that it's manufactured by Crane Aerospace. It is the electronic warfare suite for basically the entire Navy, but it's on this ship as well. It does detect, identify, and analyze radio emissions. It gives them a threat classification and tells the operator what it is, what's going on. It does recordings as well, so we can collect intelligence with this. Version 3 are installed on different combatants, such as destroyers, cruisers, battleships, and large systems. And it does cover all radar threat spectrums, X-band, I-band, even lower bands. It just records all of them and classifies them. And because it has that information, it can also jam those same frequency bands. Because a radar, when it's being operated, has certain modes that it's in. And so depending on the type of pulse rate, refresh rate, power that you're seeing from the ESM side, you need that information to properly react to it and jam it. And so that's what the system does. It collects that information and then also does the jamming part as well. It's all in one. It's a complete electronic warfare suite. Here's the SQS-53 Charlie hull-mounted sonar. I heard a lot of this in my career. Developed primarily by Lockheed Martin. It is evolved from the SQS-26 sonar, which is a older sonar. This one, though, is very powerful. It is so loud. You can see some sailors working in the dome there. That dome is on the bottom part of the bow of the ship. It's right under where the hull numbers are above the waterline. This big dome is mounted under the ship, and it just puts out enormous amounts of sonic energy and sonifying dozens of miles. And if conditions are right, you can even push that sound even farther. And anything that's in the way of that wave of sound will reflect it back to the ship, where it then hears the return. It's called a commonly spoken ping, and then you hear the return come back and you get a range and a direction. And, the sonar techs in the system take that information and make it functional, usable. It does have 7 channels, active and passive transducers are installed. So you have just a quick update on what sonar is like. You've got projectors that only produce sound, and because they only do one thing, they do that really well and efficiently. You have hydrophones that only listen, and because that's only one thing, they can just focus on doing that. Very good. But commonly, and the case here, we have transducers that do both. High power transmission, and then the moment they're done transmitting, they flip over and they're listening to any returns on that pulse they just put out. So operating ranges here estimated, and again, this varies wildly with conditions, but you can see out to almost 19,000 meters in a surface duct that is, mid-Atlantic, summertime. You're going to get water trapped. Your sound pulse will be trapped between the surface where you are, and sonic layer depth is going to be, as an example, say 600 feet. So 0 to 600 feet is going to focus your active pulse out to like 19,000 meters and then come back. Or it's also suggesting that passively you could hear that long. And then if you have the right conditions, called a convergent zone, and that's a whole nother topic, so I'm not going to go into it, you can use the actual environment, the ocean itself, to send the pulse deep down thousands of feet into the water, and then it comes back up again to the surface. 64,000 meters away. That's over 30 miles away. Well over that. And you can hear context that far. And that is a very interesting talk. Maybe we'll do that someday, but not today. We're going to move on to the towed array. This is a passive towed array developed by Lockheed Martin. There's several different types. This SQR-19 Bravo is good for all low frequencies. This can see down to near zero frequency, which means it has great range. Things that create 5 and 10 hertz signals are like earthquakes, but the sound and energy, because it's only 10 hertz, has almost no attrition. So once the sound is created, it can travel the globe practically, because there's no signal loss. So we're looking down to those types of frequencies with this towed array. And even though it is passive, it is extremely long range depending on the frequency. And the higher you go in frequency, generally speaking, the shorter the range is. And it quickly gets to zero. Like you can get so high in frequency where you can't see anything, right? But between the very low frequencies we look at and that very high frequency that I just mentioned, there is a lot to work with. And this towed array takes advantage of that spectrum. It's very good. It's very similar to the towed array we have on submarines. Very similar. All right, Tomahawk TLAM Block 4. This is a old school now Tomahawk. This was the new hotness back when I was in the Navy, but now it has been around for quite a while. Long range, subsonic, nap of the earth flying cruise missile. Its primary strength is that it's very low to the ground during its entire flight. After its initial launch, which may throw it up a couple hundred feet, it quickly goes down to nap of the earth, or just a few feet off the water. And then once it's over land, it can use Terracom and maps that are all embedded in the memory already. And it can actually look outside of itself with mapping radar to verify its position. And so if a turn, a canyon, a mountain, a hill is up ahead, it can quickly, come up a little bit off the ground, so it doesn't run into a tree or something, and then fly over the hill or the ridge and then go back down again. So it stays nap of the earth as best it can at this subsonic speed. And that's kind of its strength. Yeah, it's not stealthy at all. If a radar beam hits this, it will reflect it and be detected, but the radar is going to have to be within line of sight to see this thing, because it's so low to the ground. It takes advantage of something called a radar horizon. So it's flying underneath the radar beams for the majority of its flight. And that's how it can surprise contacts. As though, even though it's slow and not stealthy at all, because it flies low to the ground for over 900 nautical miles. It's very long range. It can surprise the hell out of a target. This is nuclear capable, by the way. We can put tactical nuclear warheads on this thing up to 150 kilotons, which is it's enough to do the job, but that's very extremely rare. It's almost always a 1,000 pound high explosive warhead. 450 kilograms is what it says here in the lecture, but I think of it as a 1,000 pound warhead. There's some rounding in that. And this Block 4 IOC'd in 2003. We've used these in the 2003 Iraq invasion. Most recently, we used this at time of this recording, our attack on Iran's nuclear site. That attack was all across Iran. It wasn't just the nuclear site in the north near Tehran. We hit a lot of military targets in the south and in the middle of Iran as well. Those targets were hit with Tomahawks that you're looking here on the screen. So while the B-2 bomber got the spotlight after the mission was over and all the congratulations, in support of that operation were dozens of Tomahawk missiles flying in from the south. All right, here's the SM-2 surface-to-air missile, created by and manufactured by Raytheon Missile Systems. This is the primary fleet defense missile for the entire United States Navy. Of all the surface-to-air missiles in our inventory, we have the most of SM-2s. This is the one that's going to defend the fleet. It's going to shoot down the incoming cruise missiles, incoming planes, bombers. It is a very good and relatively low cost compared to the other missile systems. Missile. You can put this in anti-ship mode too, by the way. The warhead wouldn't be as effective as, say, a harpoon or a tomahawk, but you can, in a pinch, put this in surface mode and shoot a ship. You would do that if you had no other choice, if you had no other weapon to shoot the ship with. The warhead's only 115 kilograms. It is high explosive, and it does have semi-active radar homing, which means it needs that illumination radar to get in on the target there. And this variant of the SM-2 IOC'd in 2003. I should mention its range. Its range is depending on the block. So if it's block 1 through 3, which is the earlier versions, it's 92 miles, which is still really good. But the new block 4, 200 miles. It's got a little booster on it. It gets way up in the sky, and then it flies for 200 nautical miles. Very long range. Okay, the SM-3, this one's very unique. Whenever you see SM-3, you think ballistic missile defense. This is the weapon that does not have a warhead, or it does not have an explosive warhead. It does have a warhead, by the way. It just doesn't blow up. It has a kinetic energy warhead, a hard piece of metal that it is going to ram into whatever its target is. And it's going to do that at Mach 3 at a range of 1,200 kilometers, a long ways away. Very high in the sky, low Earth orbit, suborbital ranges for ballistic missiles, and it's just going to ram this very heavy piece of metal into whatever that is, and the kinetic energy alone will destroy the target. And so its speed is Mach 3, its range is 1,200 kilometers, and this one IOC'd in 2005. Here's the SM-6, and this is the latest of our air-to-air and surface-to-air missiles. This is manufactured by Raytheon. They basically put all the best components of our technology and missile technology together into one missile, which makes this one very expensive, very slow to produce. There's a lot of manufacturing processes going into this amazing weapon. But what you have in the end is a very fast, very long range, and highly maneuverable missile that can shoot down modern maneuvering fighters at ranges of 200 nautical miles. Your SM-3 is good at shooting a ballistic missile that doesn't move or moves very little during its final terminal phase. You could have a modern 5th generation fighter doing everything in its power to avoid this missile. You still have a very good chance of shooting it down at very long ranges. That is very hard to do. Raytheon managed to do this with the SM-6. And that's why this missile is so important, because now we're going up against potentially 5th generation fighters, whether it's from Russia or China. China's the more likely threat in this case of an SM or of a Generation 5. And if we're going to be engaging them at these ranges and want to get results, we're going to need to use the SM-6. The bad thing is we don't have many of these. We have the actual number, of course, is not public, but it's very, very low. We cannot sustain combat operations using the SM-6. That is very well acknowledged in public information. Raytheon needs to build this missile as fast as the United States can afford it. That's the downside, is each missile's very expensive, approximately $6 million each. And even with all the money, if money was not a factor, building one of these with all the complex components takes time. It takes more time than building, for example, an SM-2 or an ESSM, a different missile. So you have a time production component, a delay, if you will, or time period that it takes to build. And then, of course, the cost is just astronomical because of the technology and components that are in each one of these. But the ones that we do have go Mach 3, they go 200 nautical miles, and they have a very good chance of not just defeating any fighter in the world, but the most advanced fighters in the world can be shot down with this weapon. And a little sidebar here, they did modify this weapon to be shot from the F-18. The F-18 can carry 2 of these, one under each wing, because it's a very big and heavy missile, you know. And we saw ranges in excess of 200 nautical miles because they're shooting those from 30,000 feet, which adds range to the weapon. So this 200 nautical miles is if it's launched from the surface of the ocean. You put this weapon 30,000 feet in the air, it can go a long way, and it does. And then it shoots down a 5th generation maneuvering fighter. CRAM Point Defense Missile System, pretty capable, you know, very short range, designed to save the ship from an incoming cruise missile attack or a drone attack. The CRAM is basically the Sea-Whiz, but instead of a 20 millimeter Gatling gun, it's got the rolling airframe missile. It comes with 2 different variants. You have a 21 missile pack on the bottom, or as you see here in the photo, an 11 missile pack, a little bit smaller one. But it shoots the same missile, has the same performance, has a range of about 12 kilometers. Warhead's very small, 9 kilograms, high explosive, and proximity fused. Goes out there, shoots down whatever's getting close to the ship that is airborne. Here's the Mark 45 Mod 2, 127 millimeter gun. Fantastic weapon system, created, manufactured by BAE Systems. Shoots the 54 caliber shells, and has different mods of shells that it can shoot out. Just know that generally you have a surface attack shell, a high explosive shell, and then you have an air defense shell, which is like a flak shell. And then there is a new fin stabilized shell called the LRY, the long range ballistic shell, which can go 94 kilometers. Yeah, it's a very long range and very accurate. It's very expensive to shoot and hit a target accurately at 94 kilometers. It is a GPS assisted guided shell in terms of getting onto to its target, but it can go for a long ways. And they do keep, you know, a small amount of those shells on board. They can use them, but primarily they're going to be shooting their 36 kilometer, if it has the mod 4 install, shooting its anti-surface high explosive shell. Now the air defense shell is a shorter range. You know, you may think that it would be longer range because it doesn't have to go all the way down to the ground, but for it to be accurately fired at a target, the range is only 15 kilometers, no matter what mod they have installed. And that has more to do with the fused shell itself. It will only go to 15 kilometers before it explodes. Or if it hits anything in between 0 and 15 kilometers, it'll of course explode on that. It can be time fused. It can be proximity fused. It can shoot up to 20 rounds a minute. So it can pump these out, was that around every 3 seconds or so? Pretty consistently. And so it keeps rounds, you know, close by in the magazine, and then it's fed from the bottom at the same time. This gun, I see it all the way back in the 1980s. Been around forever. Obviously with the mods, as you see here, mod 2, mod 4, it's been upgraded. It's very good. The long range fin stabilized round is probably the newest thing that's been added to it. But because of the cost, it's not employed very much. They just practice with it. All right, here's the Mark 38 machine gun. This remote weapon system means it doesn't need an operator on the deck. This is operated from inside the ship with a computer screen and a joystick. It can be put in a automatic mode or automatic tracking mode. The sensor that you see on top of the gun there is a camera sensor. So it has thermal camera, infrared, color TV, low light TV. It's got all the different lenses that it needs to detect things. And this is for your close range ship defense. You're not even really going to be defending any ship in the fleet. This is for self-defense because its range is just over 1 nautical mile. So if this is primarily going to be used against drones, whether they're airborne or on the water, it's going to be firing these rounds at 180 rounds per minute. Pretty rapid firing gun made by BAE. And here's the RUM 139 VLA. This is the vertical launch anti-submarine rocket. Great photo by our writer, Tayfon Osbrick, who put this lecture together for us. Has a picture of it coming out of the VLS cell there. So you have a really good idea of how big this thing is. It's just a rocket booster on the bottom part of a torpedo. So it's going to throw this capsule that you see here, up to 16 kilometers away, and drop it in the water, and then it's going to go search for a submarine down there. And it can be launched in all sorts of sea states, up to sea state 6. So even if it's really rocking and rolling out there, terrible storms and winds, this thing can still get launched and put in the water. It is a lightweight torpedo, of course, a little 40 centimeter torpedo. It'll go out, and the idea is to make the submarine run away, and then if it does detonate, it'll just damage it a little bit. And then of course the flooding is what sinks the submarine itself. It's not like this thing is going to blow the submarine apart like a heavyweight torpedo may have a chance of doing. This thing will blow a hole in the submarine, and then the flooding and the potential fire will sink the sub. Either way, the sub is not attacking the ship while all that's going on, and that's kind of the point. So this is the RUM 139 VLA, vertical launch anti-submarine rocket. Here's the Mark 54 lightweight torpedo being shot from those topside external launchers. It's a topside launcher. It does shoot the Mark 46, the Mark 54, and the Mark 50 40 centimeter torpedoes. All these torpedoes do approximately 40 knots. They have a range of about, we'll say 20 kilometers. And they just go out and do a search. They can do different search patterns, but it all has to be pre-programmed. And they are both active and passive acoustically homing torpedoes in on the target. And the Mark 54 is the most advanced of all of them. The Mark 50 is the most common one for cost reasons. And the Mark 46 is the oldest one. It's the cheapest too. And what they did, I'll just tell you, the Mark 54 was the latest development in the 2000s and even today. It's the top of the line seeker head and torpedo engine and all that, but it's so expensive. The Navy could, buy dozens of the Mark 46s for the price of just one or two of the Mark 54s. And so they compromised and put the very intelligent guidance control system that's in the nose section of the Mark 54 onto the engine of the Mark 46 that we've had for years. So relatively low cost. And that's what the Mark 50 is. It is a combination of the Mark 54 and Mark 50 and Mark 46 components all into one. It's a very good weapon system. And this version of it, IOC'd in 2004. All right. So the Arleigh Burke, I said in the beginning of the lecture that I would tell you why this is the best ship in the world. And now that I've described all the systems to you, let me tell you why it's the best. And it's because it can do all missions required by a surface combatant, whether it's intel gathering near shore in littoral waters or ASW warfare against submarines in deep water and shallow water, or ballistic missile defense anywhere in the world. And it has the power and speed and endurance to get there quickly and stay on station for months at a time, as long as necessary until the mission is done or relieved, probably by another Arleigh Burke. That is what makes this ship special. It is extremely good at everything. And we build a lot of these, an average of 2 a year. Now, its primary competitors in terms of capability are England's Royal Navy Daring-class Type 45 destroyer. Is a fantastic air defense destroyer. It shoots the very capable Aster missile system, and it is very good at self-defense and fleet defense. It's very good at air defense, but that's its primary mission. It's not as good at the other missions, ballistic missile defense being one. I'm not even sure it can do that. But ASW, while it may have some ASW capabilities, it's not as good as the Arleigh Burke's ASW capabilities. So the Daring, as great as it is, and I would argue it's even better at the air defense mission of a fleet than the Arleigh Burke is. The Daring-class destroyer built by the UK in the Royal Navy is kind of a one-mission ship. It's out there to defend from air attack, and it's very good at that. But that's why it's not the best in the world, is because it doesn't have all the other benefits that the Aegis system gives the Arleigh Burke. The other competitor to the Arleigh Burke being the best large surface combatant in the world is the relatively new Type 55 Chinese destroyer, which is a very large destroyer that has a lot of weapon systems on it. And primarily it has something like 112 VLS tubes. So it's got more VLS capability, more cells than the Arleigh Burke has. And in those cells, it can shoot a wide range of weapons, whether it's land attack, ship attack, anti-submarine torpedoes. It has very similar capabilities in terms of weapon selection as the Arleigh Burke has. There are some anti-ship missiles that China can put on the Type 55 that have better capability than the Arleigh Burke has. So in that case, those weapons would be better. And it can carry more of them by about 15 more weapons. So in that realm, surface combatants and even air defense with its air defense missiles, it is comparable to the Arleigh Burke if the Arleigh Burke's not using the SM-6. The SM-6 is, for air defense reasons, better than anything the Chinese can put on their Type 55 very large destroyer. That very large destroyer, though, is not very good at ASW, even though it does have a sonar system. It cannot shoot down or even track. Well, it can probably track, but it cannot do anything about a ballistic missile that it may be tracking with its Dragon Eye ASA radar system. It doesn't have the weapon to do that on board the ship in the VLS right now. The ASW system is at least 2 generations behind what's on the Arleigh Burke right now. So it's not as good at the ASW game. It's not good or designed to operate in littoral waters in a combat role. It does not have a ballistic missile defense capability. So while it is great at surface warfare and has a deep magazine to pull from, and some of the anti-ship missiles are better than the American anti-ship missiles, that is the only card that it has in a game of 5 or 7 cards that the Arleigh Burke has and brings to the battlefield. So that's why I think the Arleigh Burke is the best surface combatant in the world. We have 74 right now. That number's about to go up by a few, and over the next 10 to 12 years, we're going to be near 100 of these. The UK Daring, I think they have 1 that's operational at sea right now, maybe 2. We're going to have 100. The Chinese, I think they just commissioned their 12th destroyer. So they're working on the teens, getting up to 20. Well, we're working on 80 through 100 right now. So we also outnumber them significantly in many cases. So we can do more with more, faster, and more often than anyone else in the world. That's why our ship is better. It has better systems, it has better weapons, it has more capability, and we have a lot more of them. And that's the Arleigh Burke, folks. A fantastic ship. And it's the U.S. Navy that operates it. Thanks for listening.